In the work and efficiency activity, we'll actually do two different small labs inside that activity. One of them will use pulleys. In this picture, we have a two-pulley system. Here's one pulley. Here's a second pulley up here. I'll show you a close-up in a second. This is a three-pulley system. There's one here, and I'm actually using two of these three, so that's a three-pulley system. On the bottom here, here's the key that makes it a two and a three-pulley system. I have two ropes here. Two ropes are pulling, so that's going to mean I'm getting the advantage of two pulleys. In this setup, what the difference is, I have a third rope right here, so that's three ropes. That means I'm using three pulleys, and that's how they'll be set up. On the top, you can see on the two-pulley system, the second rope is attached to not a pulley, but a fixed point. So I have this rope and this rope pulling. On the three-pulley, I have 1, 2, 3 ropes pulling, and so one rope is attached, as we saw before. It ends up back on the pulley on the bottom. So I have 1, 2, 3 ropes pulling. Again, this will be set up for you, but that's how you set them up if something happens and you need to redo it. You can measure four things. The first thing I'm going to measure is what I'm pointing out there. You're going to measure the distance this goes up and the distance that you pull down. What goes up, pulling the weight up, is your output. So there's two parts of that. There's the distance it goes up, that's the output distance, or D out, and there's the force that you're pulling up with, that you're getting out. So the force is just the force of gravity that you're overcoming. So it's the force of gravity due to the mass here. And then we're going to have the distance I pulled down and the force I pulled down with. So there's that input distance. That's going to be the input force that I use with the probe. And again, the output force will just be the force of gravity on this weight. I had the weight sitting there to keep the strings on the pulleys, but the only weight that will be attached is on your output. So then I measure the distance with just me. I can't hardly do this, but you'll have one person measuring the distance you pull up and one person probably measuring the distance you pull down. And we'll use our LabQuest like we've done before. You just hit the green play button. So as we've done a dozen times before, I hit the green play button on it. The flat part, that's the part I'm pulling down on. Then once that's done, you're going to highlight it. You're going to go to Analyze and Statistics and find the mean. So I highlight it, Analyze, Statistics, and find the mean. So that's my input force. You will have to, I don't have a separate one pulley, so you'll have to take the pulley down below off to do the one pulley setting. And then here's another example. Again, I pull down, I measure the distance I'm pulling down, I measure the distance I'm pulling up, I measure the force I pull down with. My output force will just be the weight of the 1 kilogram of the 500 gram mass, or 0.5 kilograms. The second activity we'll do, tables 1 through 5 will actually start on the pulleys. Tables 6 through 10 will start on the ramp. It's a fairly simple activity. You're going to set it at 10 degrees to start with. You're going to have 2 tape marks on your board. We're going to pull the disc up the ramp with the air on and with the air off and see the difference of how that affects it. Okay, so what I'm pulling will be my input force. The distance I pull it will be my input distance. The height will be the vertical height from this mark to this mark. So the way I have to do it, so the first thing you'll need to do, you'll need that mass, because we're going to need the mass of the disc. So that's my input distance that I just showed you right there that I'm measuring. So the distance from tape mark to tape mark will be dn. That's my input distance. Then I'll need to measure how high this mark is and how high this mark is and subtract them. That will be my vertical distance that goes up. So I subtract those two heights and I find how far up I'm going. My output force, as always, will be the force of gravity pulling this. What I'm getting out of this is moving this disc from this mark to this mark vertically, but I'm doing it by doing an input distance this direction. So I hit the play button like I always do in the LabQuest and keep it nice and steady, and then I'll find my input force just like I did on the pulleys.